Just a heads up, this video is going to have a lot of like quick flashing images and lights and stuff like that, so if you are sensitive to those kinds of things, just be careful or stop watching. Thank you. Alright, now to the video. So is anyone gonna tell me I'm old now? I was scrolling around on Twitter and I came across this GIF of like an incorrect wrestling tweet, and it gave me a little chuckle. I thought it was funny, and then I looked at the replies. Who is responsible for these ugly ass GIFs? They've been around since forever. The text, the filter, the shortness. Now, to be fair, of any person on the internet, probably one of the least likely to recognize this GIF on site would be a wrestling fan with a Joker icon. But it was still a bit of an eye-opener for me, because in that moment, I realized my experiences are not universal. Because from just one frame, I would be able to tell you that this GIF was originally made for Tumblr, not Twitter. Back in May, I realized it was my 10-year anniversary of my first post on Tumblr, a website which now in retrospect seems to be associated with a lot of cringe millennial antics, which, fair. And I can't say I did not participate in some of the cringier aspects. But look, I double-checked. I am not a millennial, I'm Gen Z, I'm cringe, and I'm free, baby! And today I want to talk about a particular type of fan work that, as far as I can tell, only exists on Tumblr, and that is the GIFset. As a basic definition, a GIFset is basically a post on a social media website that includes multiple GIFs. And it's actually really weird to me that Tumblr seems to be the only semi-mainstream form of social media that allows you to include multiple GIFs in the same post. On Twitter, you can really only attach the one. Instagram has never heard of GIFs, it's heard of stickers, but those are only for your stories, and they usually have like transparent cutout backgrounds. Now, I got kicked off of Facebook a few months ago for becoming too powerful, but I can only assume that it's the same situation there as well. Even if you've never spent a moment of your internet life on Tumblr, you have probably come across a GIF or two that originated on Tumblr. If I can't find this exact GIF, I'm gonna sound like a massive weirdo, but I specifically remember one going around that was like a GIF from Metal Gear Solid that just had the word ass in the center. I can almost guarantee you that GIF originated on Tumblr. Jules from the future here to tell you that actually this was a GIF of Dragon Age 2 that had the word boner in the center, but I was very close. But before I get into like how a GIFset works exactly, I want to go into the history of GIFs both as a file format and on Tumblr. A huge shout out to the website Art World for its series on the history of animated GIF art, which I'm going to be pulling from a lot for this intro part. The .gif file format was invented in 1987 by a man named Stephen Wilhite, who insists that it's pronounced GIF, not GIF. He passed in March of this year, 2022. I'm sorry, Stephen. You may have made it. You're wrong. It's GIF, hard G. Lots of respect to you, though. A GIF is made different from other image formats like the JPEG and the PNG, specifically because of the fact that it consists of multiple frames, and yet it is not a video file. It is kind of the halfway point between them. It is, for all intents and purposes, an image. It just moves. A GIF is also usually a lot smaller in file size than a video file, though they're still a good bit bigger than your average PNG or JPEG of the same dimensions. A GIF also usually loops automatically. You can make one that doesn't, but I don't know why you would. I'm sure there's reasons. There are a lot of beautiful, wonderful GIFs from old, like, GeoCities websites that I adore with all of my heart. They're very limited, usually not made up of any more than, like, 10 frames, but I just think there is something aesthetically so unique about a GIF in comparison to either a video or a still image. Tumblr, the website, was not always the ideal place to post GIFs. For the first few years of its existence, Tumblr only allowed you to post images up to 1 megabyte in file size. But over the years, the size of images it allowed would gradually increase, and in order to hopefully explain it visually, I have made what is basically the same GIF, but at multiple different file sizes. And I hope that it'll be able to convey how even the most incremental of file size increases that Tumblr allowed really made a difference for how the GIFs on the website looked. So like I said, initially the maximum image file size was 1 megabyte. This was up to 2 megabytes in 2014, 3 megabytes in 2017, 5 megabytes in 2019, and then that doubled, then it was 10 megabytes in 2020. All of these changes in size limit have allowed Tumblr users to get more and more creative with their GIF making. And you may ask yourself, what is even creative about GIF making? A lot of the GIFs that you see on Twitter tend to be just a short video clip chopped up into frames that are played in progression. If it's a clip with dialogue initially, there will be text added at the bottom of the GIF to tell you what the dialogue is, and then compressed into a GIF, put on Twitter, it's done, enjoy, have your memes. There are websites like Giphy that allow you to basically just upload that very short video clip and convert it into a GIF automatically. And really the only art to that, I feel, is deciding when the clip starts and ends, and the font and stylization of the text, if there is any text. But those are not the GIFs I'm used to. The people on Tumblr who are known for making GIFs, who are very, very good at it, spend a meticulous amount of time on these GIFs. You're not allowed to slack on the visual aspect of it, because there is a huge amount of difference between a GIF like this and a GIF like this. GIF makers on Tumblr will usually make their GIFs in Photoshop, not through some website, and they will spend a lot of time making sure that every single frame of that GIF looks nice. Because on Tumblr, the GIFs are not functional. They are not meant to just like convey an emotion or a reaction like the singular GIFs you will see on Twitter. GIFs on Tumblr are an art. I remember I was first inspired to learn how to make GIFsets back in like 2013 or something, when I first got into the Dragon Age fandom, which is a series of video games where you can make a custom character, and I saw a lot of people making GIFsets specifically with like footage they captured from their own games, so the GIFs like featured their custom character, and I wanted to do that for my character, and I found the first ever GIFs I ever made. Here they are. But even these GIFs are like very amateur for Tumblr GIFs. I really didn't do any like brightness or color correction. I basically just took the clips, made them into GIFs, posted them, that's it. A GIF set on Tumblr will be a post consisting of up to like 10 GIFs, either in 1 to 3 columns. 99.9% of the time, these are made by someone who is in the fandom of the thing they are GIFing. And I think GIF sets are kind of a form of fan work that you really don't see anywhere else. The closest comparison I can make for another type of fan work is the fan video, but even then you are not presented with a spread of images all in front of you at once. You are given one clip after another. Like, I think there is something very different about seeing clips in sequence versus being able to look at them all at once. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think I have narrowed down GIF sets to 4 different types. These types are scenic, thematic, aesthetic, and celebratory. Man, I wish I could have thought of a 4th word that ends in ick, but we continue. Scenic GIF set will be basically just a scene from a movie or television show or celebrity interview in a GIF set form, and these are what I kind of think are the least useful type of GIF set. Honestly, these types of GIF sets might as well just be the clip from the show. Usually they're not like heavily corrected or filtered or anything, and there's usually no bonus to having all of the like lines of dialogue presented in a collage rather than just chronologically. Thematic GIF sets are some of my favorites. Usually these sets will have each GIF from a different scene, and they are meant to sort of emphasize like parallels in storytelling, or like moments when these two characters did a high five, moments when this character got hugged. A GIF that I made pretty recently was this one, which was basically meant to be moments in literary inspired web series when people in relationships held hands, because personally I was fundamentally changed by the scene in WALL-E where he's watching Hello Dolly and seeing the people holding hands, and he's like holding his own hand because he wants to hold hands. Anyways, these are some of my favorite types of GIF set because they actually involve like some sort of film analysis, you know? They involve the person making the GIF set sitting down and thinking, I want to show every time this thing happens, or I want to show this thematic thing in this thing, or you know what I mean. But if I played like each of the clips included in this GIF set one after another, it would take a lot of time. First of all, the GIF set is not really meant to be looked at for too long. An aesthetic set will basically be the like one perfect shot Twitters in a GIF set form. The person making the set will find shots that they like, They will make GIFs of each shot, and they will often try to color correct them to match as best as possible. Another example here is an aesthetic GIF set I made of the TV show Severance, which also kind of works as a thematic GIF set because I specifically wanted to get like when red is used in the show. And actually for each GIF in this set, I remember I went in and tried to make the shades of red in each match as much as possible to just have a better overall look. And finally we have the celebratory GIF set, which is basically just the GIF set maker saying, hey, look at this character I like, look at this celebrity I like, look at this ship I like. Aren't they great? I'm gonna GIF every cute thing they have ever done and put it all in front of you right now. A subset of the celebratory and thematic GIF set types is the lyric/quote GIF set, which is how you get something like the balls GIF, because those GIFs will usually have like one line or word from a phrase that the rest of the GIFs make up, but isolated, it just looks pretty funny. I think GIF sets are an extremely cool type of fan work, and if you didn't think they were before or didn't even know what they were before, I hope to have kind of conveyed my enthusiasm. Some of my favorite blogs on Tumblr are the ones dedicated to people posting tutorials of how to make certain types of GIFs, how to color GIFs a certain way, even giving their own like settings in Photoshop for how they made their GIFs look that way so that other people can do it themselves. I just think that's so cool and generous of people to do. I really, really respect anyone who has ever run like a GIF help blog on Tumblr. You are the true heroes of this country. But I regret to inform you that the GIF set's dying out. The only people who really use Tumblr anymore are the people like myself who have just been there forever, just like the way that it functions as a website and don't really want to leave. And then you get the Gen Z nostalgia kids who are just joining Tumblr for the first time, and they were not around during the heyday of the GIF set, so they are not trying to learn how to make them themselves because they're probably not even seeing that many. Here's my character, Grandpa telling his grandkids about his time as a GIF set maker in the 2010s. You kids have it so easy. Back in my day, you had to find a cracked version of Photoshop on some website. You had to download all of the torrents of the episode of the TV show you wanted to make, and you gotta clip all those videos yourself, put them into Photoshop yourself. Nowadays, all the companies, all of the productions, all of the TV shows, they make the GIFs for you. They make them for you. You don't even have to do it yourself. But I want to elaborate actually on that last thing I said, which is that the corporations make the GIFs for you now. Every time I see someone use a goddamn Schitt's Creek reaction GIF with the little watermark of Schitt's Creek in the corner, I lose yet another piece of my soul. Because the corporations, see, the corporations, they're deciding what's GIFable, what's mimetic, what's funny in their own TV shows. You just know that the people who made Euphoria knew that that bitch you better be joking line was gonna be a big ol' hit, and they had the GIF set the goddamn ready. I slid into a different character there. I slid into my like Charlie Kelly, Pepe Sylvia board about GIFs character. And I'm not trying to be a GIF boomer, I swear to God. There's a lot of things on the internet that were cool that have just been becoming obsolete, like ever since the death of Flash. That was a big landmark. But when we talk about the internet, we talk about how it's not real. Because while a GIF set is an art form, it can never exist physically. One day the people who run the internet are just gonna decide that the file format of the GIF is no longer necessary, and they'll be able to just cut it off, make it gone. It reminds me of how, like, if you were a kid in the olden days, before the internet, and your favorite game was, like, Monopoly. I don't know why it would be, but for example, you can always pull out the old Monopoly board and play it again with your own kids. I will not be able to show my kids Club Penguin because it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It wasn't profitable, so they got rid of it. I just kind of wanted to talk about a thing that I like that people don't really do anymore. But thank you for watching if you made it this far. I would love to hear about like other people's experiences with GIFs as a concept, as a file format, etc. If you want to comment in the comments. All right, talk to you later. Bye.